The Mississippi River flowed quietly under the late autumn sky of 1837. It had seen thousands of journeys, trading vessels, military transports, explorers, and steamboats pushing upstream, trailing smoke like dark ribbons across the clouds. But on one particular night in November, it witnessed something darker, something more tragic than most would remember. The mysterious and horrifying disappearance of nearly 679 souls aboard the steamboat Monmouth *. The Monmouth * was not a ship of comfort or leisure. It had been pressed into service not for trade or travel, but for the forced relocation of a group of Muscogee Native Americans, driven from their ancestral lands in the Southeast by the relentless push of American expansion. This was the age of the Indian Removal Act, signed into law by President Andrew Jackson in 1830, a cruel policy that cloaked its intentions in promises of peace but delivered only suffering. Entire nations, Cherokee, Choctaw, Seminole, Chickasaw, and Muscogee, were uprooted from the soil their ancestors had walked for centuries. On that fateful November day, the Monmouth * was overloaded, stuffed beyond safe capacity with human lives. Some say over 700 Native Americans were packed aboard. Most were shackled or penned like cargo, given little food, poor shelter, and no escape if something went wrong, and something did. As the Monmouth * journeyed down river near Baton Rouge, Louisiana, it collided with another vessel, the Trenton *, a transport ship towing several barges. The exact details of the crash remain debated. Some say fog blurred visibility. Others claim the overloaded Monmouth * was barely maneuverable and simply got in the way. But what's undisputed is that the collision cracked the hull wide open. The cold black water of the Mississippi rushed in. Panic broke out. Those on the lower decks, many of them Muscogee, had no chance, trapped by crowded conditions, blocked by chains, and sealed in by locked hatches. Hundreds drowned within minutes. There were no lifeboats ready, no systems in place to aid evacuation. The crew, few in number, barely survived themselves. Rescue came too late. By morning, bodies floated downstream or sank into the current, disappearing forever. The official count of the dead varies. U.S. Army records mentioned around 311 fatalities, but other eyewitnesses claimed far more, up to 679 missing, many never recovered, their names never recorded. But what truly vanished that night wasn't just lives. It was memory. The Monmouth * tragedy faded quickly from the American narrative. No great memorial was built. No government apology was offered. The lost Muscogee were not seen as martyrs or victims, but simply as footnotes in the relentless march of manifest destiny. They disappeared not just into the river, but into silence. The sinking of the Monmouth * did not make national headlines. The few newspapers that covered it mentioned the loss briefly, without mourning, without outrage. There were no demands for investigation, no portraits of the dead, no names read aloud in churches or government halls. The victims were indigenous. To most Americans at the time, their lives didn't weigh the same. This was the brutal truth of 19th century America, a nation that preached liberty while erasing those who stood in its way. In the weeks following the disaster, Army officers tried to manage the fallout quietly. Survivors of the wreck were marched farther west toward what was then called Indian Territory. Modern-day Oklahoma, no therapists, no relief, just more walking, more loss, more silence. Among those who survived was a young Muscogee man named TVLWV, barely 18. He lost his father in the wreck, a man who had once been a respected leader in their village. TVLWV remembered the sound of the boat striking something in the fog, the sudden tilt of the deck, the screams in the dark. He remembered being pulled under, fighting the river's grip, and emerging into a world forever changed. In the years to come, he would tell the story to his children, and they to theirs, but never with bitterness. Only with resolve. We were not weak. He told them we were stolen. The government never paid compensation to the families. The wreck of the Monmouth was salvaged quietly, the pieces reused, the tragedy forgotten. History textbooks rarely mention it. There's no museum exhibit dedicated to it. Even among steamboat disasters of the 1800s, it is one of the most overlooked. And yet, it represents something profound, the systematic invisibility of suffering when it belongs to the voiceless. To the Muskogee, this was not just an accident. It was a continuation of policy, a careless cruelty, the overloading of the boat, the absence of safety measures, the lack of accountability. It all reflected a government more interested in efficiency than dignity. The Monmouth may have been swallowed by the river, but it carried with it the weight of a national shame. Some historians believe the number 679 was inflated. Others say it was likely higher. The truth may never be known because the records were either never made or intentionally vague. What remains is the undeniable fact that a massive loss of life occurred, and almost no one remembers. Years passed, the trail of tears ended, but not the suffering. The survivors of the Monmouth disaster, those who managed to reach Indian territory, began rebuilding lives from the shattered fragments of their past. Villages formed again, prayers were whispered in the old language, and the earth slowly began to feel like home, even if it wasn't. TVLWV, now older, became a teacher of stories, not in a formal school, but under trees, by fires, in the rhythm of oral tradition. He told the children not only about the river, but about the injustice. He didn't tell them to hate, but he refused to let them forget. In a world that wished to erase them, memory was survival. Elsewhere in America, progress marched on. The cities grew, railroads stretched like veins across the land, and steamboats continued to ferry people and goods until they too were replaced. But the names of those 679, never carved in stone, never chanted in ceremony, drifted into the shadows of history. In the late 20th century, a historian named Emily Carter stumbled upon a single line in an old journal while researching steamboat tragedies. Monmouth sunk, Indian passengers lost. Curious, she dug deeper. Archives in Mississippi, old army logs, newspaper snippet. Each revealing fragments of a forgotten truth. The more she uncovered, the more disturbed she became by the silence that had followed the disaster. Emily wrote articles, she petitioned for memorials, she met resistance. Few people wanted to revisit such a painful and neglected part of the past, but she persisted, publishing a book that began to circulate in universities and among Native communities. Her research reignited the memory of the Monmouth and for the first time, descendants of the victims gathered to remember. A small plaque now stands near the Mississippi River in Vicksburg. It's not grand. Most people walk by it without noticing, but for the families who carry the story in their blood, it is something sacred. It marks not only a place of loss, but a place of truth. TVLWV's great-great-granddaughter stood there one summer afternoon. She closed her eyes and listened to the wind on the water, hearing in it the voices of those who once sang, cried, and hoped to board a boat that was never meant to hold their future. And she whispered, *, you are remembered, *.